commissions. We want to make sure that there is economic accountability and potential for revenue generation. The benefits, of course, would be cultural pride, stronger festival operations, economic growth, youth empowerment. So just to look at the structure, the board will be a 7-member board, and it'll have representation from the Department of Youth and Culture, from Finance, and from the Tourist Board. We also will have a youth representative, someone who has background in governance and business, someone with background in festivals, festival development, events planning, and boat racing and public interest. So those will be the areas that are covered by the commission board. And of course, the board will have staff. It'll have its chief executive officer, an executive secretary. Eventually, we will have a financial officer, and we will add staff as need be. Is it clear? Okay. So what does the commission do? It does several things. It develops rules around how we run festivals. It will regulate and evaluate festivals. It'll promote festival industries. It'll implement marketing strategies. It will license festivals. And hopefully we will raise funds and sponsorship for the commission and for the execution of festivals, and manage venues and events. We'll seek and apply for grants. So we would want the commission to be able to seek outside funding through grants or by sponsorship. Also, they will manage intellectual exchanges and establish committees. So that means the Summer Festival Committee, for example, and any committees that will be running other festivals that happen throughout the year. So some provisions to note. Anyone who wants to host a festival and wants to receive support from the commission, and that may mean financial or marketing, whatever that support may be, they will need to apply for a license from the commission. Persons who choose to host a festival without a license cannot receive support from the commission. Persons cannot advertise, promote, or host any paid public functions mentioned in the schedule. And there's a schedule in the legislation that talks about different events that happen during Carnival. We don't want festivals that are competing with our summer festival and such. So there's a provision for that. Hosting an unlicensed festival is in breach of the scheduling requirements, and it attracts a fine of $7,000 EC dollars. The board can choose a committee to inquire and advise on any matter the board is responsible for. The board can also give any committee certain powers or tasks to carry out on behalf of the commission. The financial provisions. So the commission will be funded by whatever monies the government ascribes to it in the budget process during the House of Assembly. So they'll have that pot of money. The Minister of Finance may direct when and how government funds are spent or are paid to the commission. Obviously, there will be revenue that's earned from services rendered, gate receipts, sales, donations, money borrowed in accordance with the approved business plan. So there is scope for the commission to borrow money, and funds provided from sources approved by the permanent secretary. So that is sort of the broad strokes, what the legislation contains. So where we are now, we are, as I said, in the process of getting feedback. The draft that we have now was approved in the Executive Council and will be tabled in the House of Assembly. And here we are to get your views on what it is we're trying to do here. So are there questions, concerns? Excuse me? Sure. Which one?
So that will be additional funds outside of the subvention. For example, there may be a unique need or something at any point in time, and there's a possibility that additional funds may be gotten through the permanent secretary, if that's the case. This is outside of what is already subvented to the submission, to the commission. So every year the commission will get its subvention, but there may be other opportunities for funding throughout the year. So we have the microphone there, so we encourage persons who are asking questions to use the microphone so that persons can also hear. In addition to what has been noted, a person is disqualified from being appointed and remaining a member of the board if the person is under 18, if you're a member of the House of Assembly, if you're an officer or an employee of the commission, is undischarged bankrupt, is of unsound mind, or has been convicted of a sexual offense or an offense involving dishonesty, whether in or out of Anguilla. So that disqualifies you. So if there's anybody that fits the bill, you won't be considered. And just generally speaking about committees of the boards, there are times when there may be a need for additional committees that may not necessarily be in line with festivals. You may need an HR committee when the staff complement grows. You may need a finance committee in the early stages just to set up all the financial apparatus of the commission. So there is an opportunity for committees to be established within the board as well. And just for the general public to know, the commission is really designed with the economy in mind. So this is really, we are moving away from a government-based model to a business-based model that still has some connection to the government of Anguilla. And I think the connection to the government of Anguilla is still critically important because you do need that basis and that partner that's able to step in during tough moments. You don't kind of want to be out there on your own, but the commission has the flexibility to be able to carry out all the festival work without the bureaucratic processes that are sometimes associated with government. So it is our hope that the commission will run. We will try to give it as much resources as possible to be able to function. Our main focus, obviously, is the Anguilla Summer Festival because that's the biggest festival. But outside of the Anguilla Summer Festival, there's so much room and scope to help develop a number of the other festivals that already exist on island, but also scope to create new festivals. So we hope that over the next 3 years, the festival will be operating in a very dynamic way. And every year, of course, there's an opportunity to request additional funding through government's budgetary process. But we are also hoping that the commission will also come up with creative ways to attract money and funds. That's a critical element of why we want the commission in place, so that year round, they're looking at additional funding to support festivals development and management.
Minister, we have a question that came in via WhatsApp for someone who doesn't feel comfortable asking questions publicly. And the question is how are the members of the commission appointed? They are appointed by the minister.
Yep, that's pretty direct. Yeah. So obviously in keeping with the legislation, because the legislation outlines the various areas that need to be covered, but ultimately I have the deciding, well, the Minister of Culture, whether that's me or somebody else. No, it's me, but I decide now who will be on the commission.
Oh, this one. Yeah. All right. So this is related to Section 7 with the various representations. Will there be mechanisms, ways to ensure that practitioner voices are heard in influencing festivals, so like a dance festival, a theater festival, a music festivals? How will practitioner voices be heard?
I think that's an excellent point. I think the commission has to ensure that that happens both at the operations level, but also at the board level. I think the consultation process is critically important, but I would encourage the operations team of the commission to engage with practitioners. So I think especially in the first 2 years, small group consultation sessions with various stakeholders is going to be critically important. One, to have stakeholder buy-in, because this is something that's very new to the island in terms of this structure. So I think those small consultations are going to be critically important moving forward. So I think that's a really good point.
If I can just weigh in there, though, Kasim, you clearly had the act. So if you continue to read special committees of the board, there's the opportunity for sort of ad hoc committees to be set up as required. So in addition to what the minister said, there's always a possibility to engage depending on what the need is.
Okay. In terms of the licensing, I know Inland Revenue requires promoters to register for an entertainment license. So will they have to pay that in addition to the licensing fee for the commission?
Okay, so the Inland Revenue requires that you pay if you're doing any sort of entertainment. We are specific to festivals alone. And so the commission itself will have to outline and develop what licensing will look like, the fee structure and those things. And the commission is not in place as yet. So once the commission goes in place, these will be some of the things that they will have to outline moving forward. And so what being registered with the commission looks like, the commission will have to outline what that looks like. But that's separate and apart from whatever you are registered with Inland Revenue.
We have another question from WhatsApp. And the question is, what processes are in place to ensure that the minister makes appointments in the interest of the commission and not otherwise?
Well, the minister has been elected by the people. And so, I think the minister has the mandate to make selections in keeping with that mandate. But the legislation guides. I don't want persons to think that we're randomly picking persons. Persons have to, and let me go back to it so that I can read it out. You have 3 ex officio members. So one is from the Department of Youth and Culture, one is from the Ministry of Finance, and that can be the actual ministry or any department of finance. And finance has a number of departments. A representative from the Anguilla Tourist Board, a national one is a national youth ambassador, or a suitably qualified, unaffiliated youth representative, one person with a background in corporate governance, business administration, financial management, human resource development, one person with a background in festivals management, events planning, public relations, marketing or communications, and one person representing either the Boat Racing Association or the public interest. So there are some significant parameters in terms of who can be selected and what qualifications. I have a good idea of the individuals thus far that I intend to appoint to the commission. And what I've done is I've utilized a balance of a couple of things. One, persons who've obviously been in and around festivals for some period of time. They understand the past, the current, the future, a good balance of both youth as well as experience and maturity, because I think that balance is critically important, especially when you're coming up with a totally new statutory body. It's critically important that you do have some experience and expertise. So I think the suggestions that I have to put forward to Executive Council will be a relatively well-balanced team in the initial stages. And of course, each board has, according to the legislation, 2 years. So if someone or something isn't working out, there's an opportunity to switch out in 2 years. If it's a really terrible choice, there's also something in the legislation that allows you to remove that person in the public interest, and you just have to prove whatever that is. So I think overall, as with boards that are appointed by ministers, there's always that element of wondering if the right persons will be selected. But I think it helps that the legislation actually outlines in detail the persons who can qualify for this. And obviously it would be in the minister's best interest to appoint persons who can do the work, who can make a solid contribution. You know what I mean? This is something that's new. We all want to see it have success. So.
Good afternoon. I'm just playing the devil's advocate and following on from that that question. It clearly says in bullet point 2, establishment of the commission, where it says the commission is a government agency. So the question would be, what makes that different from what we have now?
Okay, so what makes it different in terms of what we have now is that currently it's sort of under, not sort of, it's under a government department essentially. And you have to go through all of the different levels of bureaucracy that currently exists. But with the commission is as much as it is a government agency, it's still a separate body that operates under the act. Something as simple as the ability to take a loan, all of those things, that's not something that a government department is able to do. Once you have outlined in your business plan that, let's say, for example, there's a loan that you're required, that you will be required to take, and you can outline how that loan will be funded and all the finance mechanisms are there, then you can do that. Just like any other business may be able to do something like that. Government departments don't have that ability or that flexibility to be able to. And so I think this structure, it is a body corporate. It will be set up in that regard, but it still has some attachment to the government of Anguilla. And I think the attachment to the government of Anguilla is still critically important because it is such an important national element that you do want some level of influence and support from the government.
Just to add on to what
It can also be sued. That is also critically important. So to the members, the potential members of the commission, as well as the operation staff, you can be sued. So that is something that is critically important to note as well. And you will not have the protection of government and the AG chambers to protect you.
just to following on from what the minister said, the other difference is that the commission can actually hold its own accounts. Government departments can't go into NCBA and open up an account on behalf of the government. That's one difference. But the reason why there is still oversight is primarily because of the financial risk. So even though it's a statutory body, you're getting a subvention from the government, and you spend that based on your business plan. But it is the commission's money to do with as they please, provided they stay within the legal framework.
Thank you for the answers. How does that, forgive my private sector knowledge, in terms of procurement and the bureaucratic chain that follows, how does that, a commission,
You still have to do procurement.
well, so how does that help with the bureaucratic chain?
It doesn't help with the bureaucratic chain with regard to procurement, but it may help with the bureaucratic chain in regard to other things. But yes, the commission will be subject to procurement legislation.
But I think it's also important to note that when people hear procurement, they only think the procurement office only, right? But there are many different layers to procurement. And one of the key layers to procurement is the actual procuring entity. So now you will no longer have a government department procuring entity. The procuring entity will be the actual commission. So the commission has a strong level of control in terms of how quickly they can complete their procurement documentation and get in this will be their only focus, which will be the festival. So you know that you need to procure XYZ within a certain amount of time. You can prepare your documents ahead of time, submit that to the procurement process, because one of the key aspects of what slows down procurement is the actual entity procuring. Once the actual procurement process starts, it goes relatively, I would say, quickly. So I think having the commission just exclusively focused on things that are there in their business and their remit is important. And obviously you have some things that are below that threshold, so they can just kind of go ahead and do their own thing in regard to those things. But it's the larger procurements that are the ones that, of course, you know ahead of time the things you'll have to procure. Obviously, there's also a provision for emergency procurement that exists in the procurement legislation. So once you can show and prove that it is needed in an emergency, there are provisions for that as well.
We have a question on Facebook. Does that mean that the commission will be required to appoint its own legal representation? Yes, that's the answer.
Yes,
I think
that's correct.
Yeah, I think statutory bodies do get some level of support from AG's chambers, but AG's chambers is already quite overwhelmed with the government departments with which it has to deal. I can think in the past of other statutory bodies who've consulted with the AG's chambers in legal situations, and in some cases they handle the legal thing depending on how complicated it is. They may decide to get private counsel.
It depends on the nature of what it is. In the initial stages, I wouldn't recommend a retainer like some other statutory bodies, because I don't think the work of the commission is as contentious as some other statutory bodies that probably need round-the-clock legal representation. So I think it's really on a needs basis, and in the initial stages, there's opportunities for a pro bono support as well, because I know some lawyers who have a vested interest in seeing the success of the organization. So it's something new. It's something that a lot of people in the community appreciate, and I'm sure there's opportunities for support in those early stages as well.
I'd just like to add in response to your sort of lowered voice comment about being able to afford it. One of the things that the commission will allow, it is a body corporate, and it's not going to be fully dependent on government subvention. It's a full-time organization, and there are funding agencies that sometimes shy away from funding government. So it would then likely to be able to see grant funding, external to even Anguilla. So fundraising is something that is going to be critical, a critical part of the success of the commission as well.
Sorry, I think that's where I was going in terms of it being listed. As I said, is a government agency.
But
How
it
does
has a
that
legal
differ?
life of its own.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So I'm just looking at that comparison.
I think the reason why you're grappling with it is because it is in between. A statutory body is a government agency, but it
understand.
is also an independent
Right.
agency.
And I think, again, as I said, playing the devil's advocate based on the questions that will come from some persons in the public, is a government agency. Where are we? What's the difference between a commission, a board, an agency?
But you're having a whole staff, a whole commission dedicated solely to festivals, which you don't have now. You have a Department of Youth and Culture, and yes, they do festivals, but they do a lot of other things.
Right.
This entity is dealing with festivals specifically.
Right.
I think you're also thinking about the grant funding, because there's a lot of grants that don't allow for government agencies to be able to apply.
Right.
That's
And
what you're
I'm saying,
thinking.
right.
Exactly.
And it says it is a
There are
government
some
agency.
grants that do allow for, in the situation of the commission, that would allow you to get grants because it's not directly a government agency. But yes, you will be blocked from some who will say as long as you're affiliated with the government, you won't be able to get funding. So yes.
The other thing too is that without having an attachment to the government, you're pretty much on your own. So is that really a direction that you want to go? Because then that comes back to accountability issues and all of those things. So I think it's important to get the right balance. For the most part, this agency is on its own in terms of you won't have the ministry breathing over you, telling you what to do. You have an instrument that dictates how you should operate, your financial guidelines, your reporting structures. All of that is clearly outlined in the Act. Obviously, there will be additional regulations that will help to guide you even further over time. But for the most part, this agency is on its own. It's allowed to execute, and that is not something that we've traditionally had in the past. So you'll get your subvention yearly, and then you will be asked to go ahead and be successful.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. I just have a quick question. Based on section 6, the first one, number 1, where it says that it is unlawful to advertise, promote, represent, or hold any festival or public function, etc. You guys can read the rest. My question to that, don't you think this could unintentionally probably limit some creativity and innovation among us here in Angola? Because, like, for example, there's isn't really anything happening after Queen Show. So what if someone wants to do like a pop-up jam after Queen Show and they didn't ask for permission prior? They just decide to do the spur of a moment. They would then get fined for that?
Well, they know what the law says. You know that you're not supposed to speed because the law says you're not supposed to speed.
But you know,
So essentially, I don't think it limits creativity because we don't want the commission to be seen as this big bad wolf that, you know, is trying to, you know, prohibit persons from having, you know, these cultural experiences. But at the same time, the Anguilla Summer Festival period is an extremely important period. That is the single most important festival period that government invests millions of dollars in. And it's very, very important that this commission has some level of control over scheduling during that period of time to ensure that we're able to maximize on our general investment. You also want to control what's happening around that period of time. You have a lot of people on island. You also have competition for resources. The immigration, customs, police. There's so many different partner agencies that are involved during the Anguilla Summer Festival period because it's literally almost 2 weeks. So you need to ensure from many different perspectives that you have significant scheduling. There's a good understanding of what's going to be happening on the ground ahead of time so that resource management happens. So I don't think that we're trying to block anybody from, you know, having events or activities, but we want to ensure that these things are properly managed and well organized, you know, just to maximize the investments that we have. And this isn't something that's unique to Anguilla. There are other countries that also limit persons from having activities or events or at least registering. And like it says, we're just saying that prior to having your activities, you need to request the ability to do so. And like I said, the commission isn't some big bad agency that's trying to block you. But I think it was important that around the summer festival period in particular, there's some levels of control.
Okay, because I was thinking along the lines of small places like Lucian Bar that they just pop up and just do a jam Friday nights, you know? So that's why I was thinking if it would be a hindrance for them.
Well, Lucian Bar is a business. It's a bar. So if they have a activity during the summer festival period at their bar, nothing is prohibiting you from having, you know, their activity there. If you have a regular licensed business place and you're having a small activity at your establishment, that's very different to having a major competing event like Eyes Wide Shut. It's just very different. You know what I mean? So it's just important for us to be aligned. And for the most part, as it stands right now, most organizations that do large events, they have a working relationship with the Anguilla Summer Festival Commission, the Anguilla Summer Festival Committee. So it's not like this is something that is different or unique. It's just a little bit more formalized, and we're formalizing the relationship and make sure that everyone is aligned. You're welcome.
I just want to add a little bit more so that persons in the room as well as persons listening can get a little more context as well. So in addition to what the minister said, if there is another potentially competing bigger event in terms of resources, it's not even just government resources. Now you're fighting to get GAF, or you're fighting to get security, or the best lights person, you know, so sometimes prices can go up because persons now can have to decide, am I going to go with Anguilla Summer Festival or Maliohana Fest, or am I going to go with John Doe Big Vet, right? And so those are the kind of things that we want to keep in control.
A question following up on that. I don't think when I searched just now that there was a deadline for applications of those things. So like how she was saying, if someone wants to do an event, is there a deadline prior to, okay, let's say I have a promoter who pops up in July and wants to do an event during the festival week. let's say Tuesday after Queen Show? Is there a deadline? Would July be too late? Or
Well, the legislation doesn't do that. So the commission and the operations team will decide in terms of timelines and, when you have to apply by and those sort of things. But again, we're looking to have a system that's not too rigid, but is also practical.
all right. Another question on behalf of someone. Seeing that the commission will be an entity unto its own, how much input would the government still be expected to have, since they will be providing subvention?
Our input is restricted to the subvention amount that we provide, which goes through government's budgetary process. The legislation outlines in terms of the financial reporting and guidelines. And once you remain, and obviously the minister appointing the commission, but once you stay within your financial guidelines in particular, and I keep saying financial guidelines, once you stay in your guidelines in terms of your reporting, your yearly auditing, and those are, for the most part, the government of Anguilla is not interested in the creative direction of the organization. I shouldn't say we're not interested. We are interested, but we're not going to dictate. That's why we've put a commission in place, because we expect that these are the people who will chart that way forward. So there may be weeks where you may not hear anything from us. You may think that we've forgotten about you, but the expectation is that this organization will be allowed to fly. Yeah. P.S.
Yeah, if you look at section 15, the role of the ministry in relation to the commission, it talks about how they relate. So the ministry will provide guidance on ministerial policies and objectives and provide overall administrative support, agree with the CEO and the chairman of the board on a framework for target setting, output delivery, and strategic performance and management. So it's really more of a partnership, right? Rather than we are the ministry dictating to you what you now must do. Ensure that irrelevant delegations and authorities necessary for effective delivery of services and continuous improvements have been made, coordinate relevant mandatory induction and professional development training, develop and foster a working relationship with the CEO, the chairperson, the board, and the ministry, facilitate at least 2 yearly formal meetings with minister, assist the board to develop a statement of corporate intent and business plan, and provide strategic performance monitoring. But this does not include interference with the day-to-day management of the commission.
Okay.
And I think the thing we have to remember about legislation is it provides the framework, but really there's scope to make regulations to further dictate how the legislation is implemented. And then the commission will have its own policies and guidelines that they will institute.
Okay. Thank you. I think I have one more question. I think it would be maybe better suited to the board itself, but as the minister and ministry, so like impact assessment, interdepartmental collaboration between culture, the festivals, tourism, what would be your ideal vision? What would make you all happy to see come out of those kinds of things?
I think just basically looking at the composition of the commission of the board of the commission speaks to just that, because you will have your representation from ATB, you'll have your representation from DYC, from finance. So it is contemplated in the way that the board is set up that this interdisciplinary work will take place.
Following on to that question, someone actually asked a similar question. Naturally, some aspects of an initiative that may straddle between the commission, tourism, and culture, who ultimately decides which of these entities would lead or assist on a particular initiative? Is there a set of guidelines that can be applied to determine where an event or initiative should fall? Well, the Festivals Commission, as it says, is focused on festivals. I know over the years, festivals have kind of moved. They originally were in tourism. They went over to the Department of Youth and Culture, and now they're going to the commission. So I agree that there are elements of all. As we indicated, from an economic perspective, we are hoping that the festivals are a huge tourism economic driver. So there's that element of tourism that's involved in the festivals. But of course, there's also the cultural aspect and cultural preservation that's included. So I think, as the PS said, this is really a collaborative effort and approach. But if anything is considered a festival, then the leading organization on it is the Festivals Commission. One of my ministers actually, my ministerial colleagues actually specifically asked me if it was possible to put a particular event under the Festivals Commission. And I said to him, maybe we can have that discussion during year 2. For now, the commission needs to focus on, its core work. So there'll be all sorts of persons trying to assign things to the commission. But in this first initial couple of years, we're focused exclusively on the established festivals and then branching out. There's a lot of work that we have to do with our existing festivals. And so, it's important for the commission to focus on developing those first before we can think about other things.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I have not read the bill, so I'm just coming straight off. There's a few festivals on the island, and each one requires the number one thing: sponsorship. What flexibility does the commission has? What I gather is that the commission would support in terms of marketing and more awareness to each festival of theirs. But what if they need support of monetary support? Is there anything to support that?
So the Department of Youth and Culture's budget related to festivals that they would normally give to festivals will now be moved to the Festival Commission. And the Festival Commission will have the flexibility to decide within the budgetary allotment that they have how much money to give to various festivals. It is our hope that in the coming years, the amount available for festival support will be more. So the commission can decide how much money they want to give to any festival once they have the budgetary allotment to be able to do that. So there is that flexibility as well.
Second question: what all venues are under the commission? Are there any venues that
The Lansambole Cultural Center will be transferred to the commission.
Oh, that's the only venue.
Yes, correct, for now.
Okay.
I think it's safe to say, though, that the August Monday Beach Party, we would consider Sandy Ground Beach as one of the potential venues. Right now, the UIC manages how vendors operate down there during the August Monday Beach Party. And the Festival Del Mar, which we do make a contribution towards annually, if they're interested in working with us or coming under the commission, then how the Sandy Ground, the Island Harbor Beach is managed would also be considered a potential venue.
So I just want to emphasize something. It is my belief tourism and festivals need to be like this. Very close-knit. One can't do without each other, and that should be key. I don't think one can exist without the other because it takes both to yeah. Right?
Good afternoon. One of the biggest drawbacks that I find for Anguilla Summer Festival, being that week and weekend, it's also Antigua Carnival. St. Martin has best weekend ever. Barbados is the weekend coming up. One of the biggest drawbacks from getting people to come here is the cost to stay on island when they're here. Is there anything in the parameters of the Festivals Commission or even tourism, because they will be working hand in hand in order to see about in that time frame, because it's the end of the hotel season, possibly speaking with the hotels for them to have a reduced rate for persons coming in, because my friends from Antigua wanted to come this year, but they're like, it's too expensive. So that's something that, is that something that you guys will pitch to the board, or is that something that the Festivals Commission will have to deal with on their own?
I think that's an excellent point. I think that's how it's really critical that we are working with the Anguilla Tourist Board. In the past, we have had special rates at different properties. And so I think that's something that the Festivals Commission will definitely be re-engaging the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association, as well as the Anguilla Tourist Board, to help to support that. But outside of that, there's also the option of the Airbnbs. We have a number of Airbnbs across the island that are very affordable for large groups. Anguilla is a very relatively safe destination. So persons who are coming in, it's important for them to also know that you have full large houses that are available as well. That's affordable. So I think it's just about planning and promotion and letting people know all the available options. But I take on board what you've said, and it is a significant concern, especially for persons coming from some of the neighboring Caribbean islands where, you know, it can be high. I agree.
Just to follow up on Mr. Richardson's question with the spaces, can we expect to hear, can y'all tell us in the first instance which festivals will fall directly under the remit of Festivals Commission?
All festivals.
So Moonsplash Festival, Del Mar, Anguilla Summer Festival, missing anything?
Yeah. All festivals will have to,
Valhalla Fest?
yes, all festivals will have to be licensed by the Festivals Commission. Now, obviously, that does not mean that the Festival Commission is going to control every festival, because there are a number of festivals that have been developed through grassroots-based initiatives, and we want to continue to allow persons to be able to plan their festivals for the most part. But what the Festival Commission does is it provides a administrative and marketing apparatus that works year-round to help to support the festivals. So really and truly, we are now providing them that support that a lot of them have never had year-round dedicated to them.
Thank you.
We have a question from Facebook about how festivals are defined. And festival, for the purposes of this legislation, is defined as, festival means a national celebratory event that has been licensed as such in accordance with Section 5 of this legislation. And then Section 5 talks about how you go about registering to be licensed. So not every event, every fete is a national celebration. So I think that's because people are concerned. Are we trying to clamp down on all these little parties or fetes that may be happening? That's not what this is trying to do.
Just a quick follow-up to what it's Benjamin asked about the it's unlawful to advertise events during the summer festival. How does all of this align with the role that the police will play? Because right now the police, basically, commissioner decides whether or not an event is carried on or not during the summer festival. I mean, would that be aligned? Would it be the commission that have the final say to say that our events are happening, or would it be the commissioner of police who decides that presently, if during the summer festival, the commissioner, because this year, for example, I had discussions with the commissioner of police, and there might have been one or two events based on the risk factors from the police standpoint that they decide is not going to happen or could not happen. How would this final decision be the commission's decision, or would it still be the commissioner of police that decides whether or not an event happens or it doesn't happen?
So you're saying that this is a licensed festival,
The summer festival.
and the police say, no, you can't do this because of safety.
Because of whatever safety risk, that they would have done the analysis and look at the risk factors. So they would decide if the event is one that's going to carry on or not.
Right. The legislation doesn't speak to that, but I would like to believe that security takes precedence.
Well, I think it just all depends on the nature of the situation. For example, there is a particular event that in the past the police have had significant concerns about, and they would have indicated maybe discontinuing the event. I would have made it abundantly clear in executive council that that's not an option. So we would need to figure out what do we need to do to be able to make it possible. So that may mean we may have to invest in more resources, more security personnel, more assistance from St. Martin. So I think it's not a case of either or. Police have the ability to determine whether you get a noise permit or not. So that's within their control. And we have responsibility for licensing. I don't see an adversarial relationship happening where the police are saying, no, something cannot happen unless it's significantly serious. But I think ultimately, it would be on both entities to make that final decision. Yeah.
Unless you can do something to mitigate the danger.
Right.
If you can.
And I think that's the actual answer. The answer is there will be a discussion between the commission and the police to determine, because there has been situations where the police have said we don't want to have this event, and even from a committee standpoint, the committee has said, well, we will put this in place to prevent or to assist with and help to avoid. And so therefore they were saying, okay, that's fine, we can do that. So I think it'll have to be a discussion, but everything will come to the commission, and the commission will then have that conversation.
Right. Again, I'm just asking based on the public is going to come. So we're licensed.
I understand.
We're licensed
I understand.
with the commission to do an event, and like even though we're looking at festivals, at licensing festivals, but then if you look at Section C, as you said, it's unlawful to advertise or promote an event, and you know that event and that discussion will be had with the commission staff or the CEO or director, whoever is handling that event, the commission at a point in time. So, what role would that?
But I also want to remind the public that there is also a joint team. I can't remember what the team is referred to, but it's essentially the team that meets with the various government agencies in the summer festival that plans and discusses the various aspects of the festival throughout. So I think there's already that collaborative approach that exists. So while the festival commission is registering different entities, there's also the collaboration between the Royal Anguilla Police Force to make sure that that is in line with the general plan. That's why it's so important for persons who are interested in having an event or activity during the period to apply ahead of time so that they can be considered in the general scope of things. So I don't think it's a clear. I think both entities have, based on the law, has some level of control and what they can and cannot do. But if it gets to a point where it's really a hard no for the Royal Anguilla Police Force, then considerations would probably have to be made to the National Security Council and Executive Council. And the National Security Council is essentially the members of the Executive Council.
But can any draft be included in the legislation that speaks to
which?
Speak to the role of the commission and communicating with the Royal Anguilla Police Force as it relates to the licensing of an event to carry on. I'm not sure if that's really clear.
Sorry, what would you want it to say?
I'm not sure if I could word it, but basically, if an event is happening, right now we have a collaborative relationship that's happening. Can that be included or input in the legislation in any way that says that in accordance with the Royal Anguilla Police Force, such and such will be discussed or be looked at to make the final decision?
I think it could be. Maybe that's something that we can make regulations around. I don't know if you want that in the Principal Act. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just asking if that is necessary.
I think there's scope to include something like that.
I'm also a little bit concerned as well too, because to me it gives the agency more power when you put in the legislation that essentially there has to be a collaboration between the entities to make a decision. So I think maybe that's something we could discuss a little bit further, because right now I prefer to keep the commission as having the ultimate authority on the licensing of those festivals. And then if there is a major issue, then it goes to the National Security Council, as opposed to saying that the decisions need to be made in consultation with the Royal Anguilla Police Force. I have some views on that.
I agree with you, may say it's to some extent, but I could foresee that they could become a conflict as to who decides what. I know, for example, and this is speaking from the experiences of this year, where depending on who the performer is supposed to be, and I know the commissioner stated that depending on which performer, they would not allow that event to happen. Yes. Yeah. No, I'm just saying, would that, I'm just looking at licensing an event for,
So, So I think there's two things. One, the licensing of a festival doesn't necessarily speak to the entertainment for that festival. So first and foremost, let's use Eyes Wide Shut as an example. We can register, as a commission, register Eyes Wide Shut as a licensed festival. And he would be licensed for X amount of time. That would be determined by the board once they're in place. And let's say it's a 2-year period. This year, he said, okay, I'm doing my event on XYZ date. He submits the information that the commission has asked for, whether it's your times, your entertainment, etc. Again, probably to make sure that they're not clashing with entertainment for different events. The commission is fine with that. There is still the process of work permits. And so there are some things that will be a little bit limited in that sense. I think that's where you get the kickback from, not so much the police per se. You do get the kickback from immigration in terms of certain persons being able, and labor in terms of certain persons being able to enter the island and perform. So I think that, and as the minister would have said previously, there is that committee that is always in existence with immigration, customs, labor, and police that would meet with previously the committee, going forward the commission, to be able to trash out those discussions. So when it comes to licensing, you can be licensed without us knowing who your entertainment is for your festival, because that's separate and aside. When it comes to scheduling, however, when you have to submit who your artists are to make sure that we're not clashing in terms of artists, that discussion would be had before approval would be had with that committee to ensure that everybody's on the same page before you go ahead and license. And I think you'll trash that out likely before you reach to a licensing and approval part for the scheduling. That doesn't diminish having the license. Does that make sense? I do have a question, sorry. I got one by WhatsApp that says, how does signing of contracts with WALK between the various committees work? Do the various committees have authority to sign based on legal representation, or does it have to be approved? Do contracts have to be approved and signed by the commission or the board? Contracts with vendors, contracts with artists for different events.
So it depends
Because
on
you
the
have
event.
different committees.
If it's the Anguilla Summer Festival Committee, that's the Anguilla Summer Festival Committee is directly under the commission. That is the complete remit of the commission. You have other partner festivals that have different elements to it. So it really depends on the particular festival and how the festival is arranged and organized. In the Anguilla Summer Festival's case, the commission will be responsible for signing of the various contracts.
Good evening again. Before I get into my original question, I want to know, how long does the licenses last? It just came to me, like, if I license my business, my event, my festival, is it forever, or it does have expiry dates?
The commission will determine that. Once it's set up, the commission will determine the licensing period and what is required in terms of documentation and those sort of things.
Okay. Secondly, so with the establishment of this new Festival Development Commission, as a lead body for festivals, what would be the role of the Department of Youth and Culture, specifically the Culture Division, who did festivals before?
So the culture division is responsible for far more than festivals. Festivals was one small element of the work that they do. They're responsible for cultural heritage preservation, for development of the arts. Festivals is just one small component of that. So this would be removing festivals from their mandate, but also allowing them to focus more heavily on arts-related stuff to support arts councils, the development of arts councils, but also just to provide general support to artists and cultural preservation. There's the museum, the National Museum, that needs to be operational as well. So there's quite a bit in their mandate. There's a cultural policy that speaks to far more than festivals. So they have quite a large mandate that the expectation is that they will continue to try and carry out that mandate.
Okay, thank you. Just to add to that, because I know that the Culture Division does the Maliana Festival. So will they still lead on that, or would that be turned over to the Festival Commission?
Well, the Maliana Festival has an organizing committee that will continue to organize that festival and event in collaboration with the Festivals Commission.
Okay, thank you.
I think this should be my last question, but it's related to number 10, with the establishment of the Historical and Cultural Committee. I see where it says ensuring that historical and cultural knowledge are developed and infused into the Anguilla Summer Festival. But is there a particular reason why the Historical and Cultural Committee will fall under festivals as opposed to culture?
So this is a historical and cultural committee designed to be infused into festivals. So this is separate and apart from anything in relation to the Department of Youth and Culture. The Department of Youth and Culture will still have to carry out their mandate in regard to historical and cultural preservations. This is just a specific committee within the Festivals Commission that will focus on ensuring that through our festivals we're able to retain some of this historical and cultural context. So this has nothing to do with the Department of Youth and Culture's mandate to continue that sort of work.
Okay, I was asking for clarity.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I think we'll wrap up. I'll end by saying the members of the commission, whoever the individuals are in terms of on the board, they will have a major mandate, especially for the first 2 years. This is an organization that is starting from scratch. So there is quite a bit of work that is going to be put into developing this organization and this entity. And while there is financial support from the government of Angola, there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting in the initial stages. The operations team as well is going to have to be working around the clock to ensure that this is a fit for purpose organization. The financial controls are in place, and it's really a fit for purpose structure. However, I think it's a history-making opportunity. So, to be a part of something like this in the early stages of it, I think 10, 15 years down the road when you are seeing all of the hard work that would have been put in the early stages, it's really a legacy building opportunity for individuals. So I would encourage, anybody who has the opportunity to serve, to really take it serious. It's also a board that has fiduciary responsibilities. So it's really serious. So if you are on the commission, you can be sued in your personal capacity. You can be sued as a member of the commission. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's also an amazing opportunity to create something very dynamic. So, I'm very excited about it. I think it's been a long time coming. And so I'm excited to see what it looks like 10, 15 years down the road.
Just want to add congratulations for you.
Thank you.
For taking on the task. It is well overdue. If you know, you know.
Thank you. You said if you know, you know, and I know. So, as a very young public servant coming in and working under the leadership of Mr. John Benjamin, the Festival Commission was something that Mr. B talked about continuously. And this would have been his second bout of being head of the Anguilla Summer Festival. So he would have been involved in something for years. So this was him coming back many years later. He was a lot older, so his tolerance was not there. He didn't have any time for the nonsense, and I would be on the receiving end many times as the individual who was working in the Department of Youth and Culture, but also the administrative assistant. But I've learned quite a bit from Mr. Benjamin, and he was able to articulate his vision every opportunity he got. So it's good to see that it took us a while, but we are finally here and realizing that I think along the lines we may have had some self-inflicted wounds as a country that kind of set us back. But the reality is that, we're past that. We're here. We have a piece of legislation that I think is a great opportunity for us to create something dynamic. No one is going to create this for us. It's going to take us in Anguilla doing all the heavy lifting and revolutionizing, our festivals to really make them earners. We have to diversify our economy and our tourism product, and this is a great opportunity and a great way to do it if we're actually serious, and I'm serious about it. So I'm very excited about this. So thank you very much, O'Leary. I'm very happy to be the minister during this period of time. Okay, so I think that's it. Thank you so much, PS. Thank you to the members of the DYC team, and thank you for all the persons who came here this evening and those who've been listening via Facebook Live. Please get home safely. We will be taking the legislation to the House for the final debates tomorrow, so you guys can also tune in and listen. Promise not too much fireworks tomorrow.